Hello and welcome to the Marketing Dribble Podcast with myself, Rob Boyle, and my co-host, Johnny Kenyon. Hiya, Johnny. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's a bit dreary today, but I'm okay. How are you?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I attended the Leeds Retro Gaming Festival thing on Saturday. Yeah, which is...
You've kept that in the bag, haven't you? Because you know I won't small talk when we've got guests on, but you've lured me in with that. So go on. I'll let you expand on that.
Oh yeah, so it's I think they go around the country, but it's just basically a place where there's all retro tech, retro hardware, you know, the old N64s and Mega Drives and all those sort of things, and all the games for it. And yeah, and then all the Star Wars stuff, and
yeah, you made me feel old now.
Well, yeah, there were games there. Electron.
Here.
Yeah, I got some ZX Spectrum cassettes for my collection, so yeah, pretty nerdish, but yeah, all good.
Well, that's what you have to show. I'm not going to indulge you any longer, but you've got some small talk in there. Well done. Why can't we small talk, Rob?
Because today we have another very special guest on the show, and who's that guest, Johnny?
Today we've got Rob McKenzie from, and we've been practicing this offline, Pure Agency, and you can correct me on that. So, Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and that's close enough, and it's closer than most people get, so I appreciate the accuracy there.
No worries, thank you. So I'll do you a little basic intro. I always mess this bit up. I'll do you a basic intro I've scraped off the internet. You can see why that's hard. And then I'll let you expand on that for a much better one. So, everyone listening, Rob McKenzie is an e-commerce consultant with a special interest in fashion and footwear industry. Recently joined Pure Agency as their managed services director to help them out with all things e-coms. And today, of course, we're here to talk about e-commerce. So what a great guest to have on. Rob, have you got anything to add? Can you give us a bit more?
Thank you. No, you've pretty much boiled down my career into two sentences there. So that's the most I've ever been able to do, to be honest. Yeah, I guess I came from a typical search-focused agency background, kind of worked my way up towards more niches and more kind of into the fashion and apparel sector. And right now I'm super big on the holistic marketing push, which has kind of naturally led me to hop in with the Here team. And yeah, I'm loving it. So very, very glad to be here. Thank you.
Wicked, yeah, glad to have you. So let's just get stuck in. People can tell from the title what this one's all about. So Rob, why is e-coms fucked?
This could be a long conversation. I mean, what's the typical run length? Is it 5 hours?
We'll cut you off. Yeah, we'll give you a
We'll be like time out.
Yeah, fair. I guess in a couple of sentences, there's a few things going on which I think hit critical mass this year. The first one is I feel like we've had an entire system in e-commerce that's been built on the presumption of either cheap debt or unlimited funding and finance, and the harsh reality of this year is that those two things have very much went away. So I think VC funding's down 45% last year, should I say, because we're into 2024 now. Anybody who's renewed their mortgage knows that debt's not cheap anymore, and it's making an entire generation of marketers and e-commerce professionals kind of have to rethink their playbook, because they have to get used to this weird word called profitability, which was always just this thing that we just push to the side because look, revenue line go up, so business good type of thing, right? And
returns,
I feel
what returns? We'll ignore those, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean 65% returns? Nah, not my problem, mate.
Don't put them in the calculation, yeah.
No, that doesn't come out of GA, so it doesn't count, type of thing. So yeah, these two things have happened, which have been a sharp shock, and then obviously we have again this generation of marketers who have came up through the ranks with a very tech-led kind of approach to marketing, because that's what digital has been since its inception, right? It's been tracking, it's been this platform does this, you optimize this platform, and then it all kind of works out, and you can see this equals this because this screen tells you that this metrics went up, so you're doing good. Those tools now are either being legislated out of existence, with examples cookie laws being updated or whatever, or they're being intentionally restricted by the likes of Google and Meta, who built them. So it's almost you're kind of left with this almost like a knowledge gap of what marketing actually is outside of these tech tools which have been created. And it all just mashes into one sentence, which is e-commerce is fucked, and what can we do about it?
Gosh, yeah. No, I've always thought about, you talked about there, like, it's almost forecasting and going back to basics that we used to do with businesses, and they kind of, like you say, it's almost when they had lots of money to throw around, they didn't bother about go through the P&L, you're not making as much on this, and it's just like, just keep doing it, it's fine, it's just throw some more money at it.
Exactly that.
So it doesn't necessarily sound like a bad thing. I know this is going to be really hard, and it does put pressure on companies and agencies, and I think that's why we're having this discussion today, really, just to help people out who are finding themselves in this position and kind of like, what do I do? But we'll get into all that. Rob, take us away.
Yeah, I'm at which Rob now? This is going to get confusing,
that's
Johnny.
Right. We've got two. Rob B.
You have to just call me Boyley or something.
Right, Boyley.
So, in your opinion, the next question sort of going to ask there, do you think the problem sort of comes from the consumer side or more the sort of e-com side within businesses?
It's a really difficult one. I don't think we can ever ignore the fact that, we're all working in a bigger ecosystem, really, aren't we? Like macroeconomics, the kind of the ebbs and flows of the world, and all those things matter to our job. But if we just leant back and always said, it's economy, it's seasonality, which is the thing that we all go back to. Like, you can kind of say that about anything, right? And I don't think it's particularly. It's not like kind of a healthy mentality to get into when you're trying to move a business forward, because we all know that there's always winners and losers in any kind of economic situation. So I don't feel like we can put the blame on consumers and how they're reacting to which are very hard times in their life. I think the biggest challenge is, and the thing that should be on the onus for e-commerce businesses, is how they react to those changes. So there's always like a common joke we have at here where we talk projections, and the way most people do projections are like set targets is, it's 30% growth this year, and then it's like, why is it 30% growth? It's like, well, because I want 30% growth.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way a lot of businesses are going to get into trouble over the next year probably are kind of just dogmatically sticking to that. No, I want this because this is what growth looks like. It's your job to figure that out and ignore everything else. And if it all goes wrong, just blame the consumer. That's not good business. I don't think you work within the realm of what is there, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to ask on this then, how do you kind of manage that expectation with businesses to say, look, the economic climate is different. The strategy we had was this, but things have now changed. We need to either reforecast or whatever, and look at it differently. But there's still after this 30% growth. How do you manage that?
With great difficulty.
I can imagine, yeah.
I get part of a bigger thing we're trying to run out with here is getting more people involved in e-commerce discussions outside of the e-commerce team. So, and e-commerce as an isolated function is relatively simple in the grand scheme of things. Like you activate certain channels, you optimize them and whatever. But I feel like the harder job is to kind of get buy-in from like finance and trying to get buy-in from like other sectors of management. And it really boils down to going to each of those departments and, kind of just having realistic conversations with them. So sit down with finance and say, okay, you want this 30% growth. Where does that come from? How does that affect your profitability? And kind of get them bought in. Because I feel like once you talk to these other departments, they stop like kind of putting you out as like holding you at arm's length, and they kind of embrace it because you're taking an interest in their field of work. Okay. And the same thing with like the operations side as well. So going to those people and saying, right, I need to make this number go up by 30%. And then what you quickly find is like they all start freaking out because they can't handle that like level of growth, or they can't handle like the logistics side of it. So you gather all this kind of information, and you have to like present your case and say, this is what we have going for this target, which is like we can tweak the dial in a few channels, get a couple of percentage points of optimization out of it. Versus these are the things that we don't have going for us, and the fact that like people have less money, our supply costs have went up. Every single cost we have has went up. Like, how do we force that growth? And quickly you'll get to a point where like these questions just hang in the air. No one can answer them, and then I feel like the dam breaks a bit when you get into those situations. But it takes a hell of a lot of legwork to do, more so than just sitting in front of a computer, kind of like optimizing a channel. I think that's where real marketing gains come from, when you do the legwork with people as opposed to, diving into channels too much, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, as an external agency, they've hired you to fix a problem. So some people might take their approach of, look, we want 30% growth. We paid you the money, go do it. So I think that's a really good way of actually looking at it.
Sure.
And I like that approach, definitely.
The trouble is, the backside of that is you'll always get somebody from somewhere else who gets brought in, and they'll just nod their head and say, yeah, sure, we can do 30%. and oh yeah,
of course, yeah.
Sign here, sir.
Call you 8 months later and be like, right.
But then, do you want those clients who just are going to just go with that?
It depends. I think some agencies do, because they'll take 3-6 months of fees, and
not proof concept, and see you later, and on to the next. And
and if they're good enough at sales and they're good enough at the pipeline stuff, then they can do that for, I don't know, run up to an exit, I guess, and then just disappear like a burglar into the night.
Yeah, Rob, that sounds like one for you, mate. That's your style of marketing, I think, definitely. But anyway, we digress. So we're going to get into obviously some of the challenges that you're seeing with clients right now. But before we do, we're going to have a lot of why is e-coms effed? And I'm going to do that because I'm going to have to go back and beep out those previous ones. Just before we do, let's kind of look at it on a positive. When do you think was the golden age of e-coms, and kind of what made it so good? Let's set the scene for where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, the age I am, I just turned 34, and I grew up with the internet when it was in its very much pre-commercial phase. I think we got it in my house when I was like 10 or something, and obviously my parents didn't have a clue how to use it, and I saw things on during that time which no 10-year-old should ever see on the internet.
I worry about kids today, but that's a different podcast. Yeah.
Oh,
and as soon as you said that, like I can hear the dial-up tone in my head now from like
yeah.
And your mum's like screaming at you because you've like blocked the phone line for 3 hours or something. But getting back to the point, like that era in the internet and like the very foundations of e-commerce and what we know of it today was like just starting to blossom. So you had like like Amazon was like staking its claim, Google was still fighting with Yahoo and stuff like that, and there was a lot less barrier to entry to kind of stake your claim in that territory and kind of build up like these like big companies from there. It's kind of like the Wild West, right? Like before, like it was very much like a lawless place, and you could do anything, and lots of people made the fortunes and stuff. But when the initial kind of railroad builders came in and kind of tamed the place, and those institutions still exist to this day, and I feel like the internet has passed that kind of anything could happen type of phase, and it's very much more commercialized now. So I feel like we've almost left the golden age of e-commerce, and we're essentially butting up against all these big players who are so established and so ingrained, and you can't really see them like declining to a dramatic degree like you could have seen maybe in the early years. So it's a lot less exciting now, I think, compared to when I first got into the industry, and it's a lot more kind of, you have to operate within certain boundaries or whatever. But back to the Wild West analogy, like a lot of people got polio in the Wild West. Like that's not really a thing anymore. So it's not all bad, right? It's just I think opportunity is going a ways compared to the past decade, I would say.
Yeah.
And obviously anyone that listens to the show that know I love an analogy. That Wild West thing's going in my book. I absolutely love that. And it's like the whole gold rush, isn't it? Like people panning for gold, and then obviously big companies come in, buy up the gold seams, and it is tamed it.
And to extend it a bit further as well, you had the initial gold rush where people made all the money mining the gold. The next phase of that was the people who were selling the shovels and the equipment. And as you'll see now, it's everyone's selling courses now. No one's actually doing the doing. It's like, oh, you buy this course and you can do this as well. And again, it feels like that's happening.
You're going to have to edit the show because I'm stealing that for the book. So
the course,
Johnny original.
I think and also I think on that there's a lot of people. Well, I kind of knew people coming in who are suddenly experts after a year and writing a book and doing all this and yeah. But going back a bit, I remember it was a lot cheaper and ads and everything to do things on the internet, but there was a lot less trust on it. So there was that kind of like you could get things out there more, but people are a little bit more wary. And as you say now, things are more expensive, but people are used to it and they trust it more, and it's the norm. And yeah, we can go on and on there. But
so it's tamer, but probably safer for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's probably and maybe less exciting because, as you say, like in the early days, you could test a lot of things and everything was new and everything was and now most things have been done and it's kind of calmed down. You could still, if you're good enough, test it.
Yeah, it's very commercialised, I think, which takes away all the romance of it, I think.
Good, yeah, and that leads quite nicely onto the sort of next question, moving it slightly on, and Johnny sort of alluded to this earlier. So, what are the sort of biggest challenges you're seeing with your clients right now?
For me, I guess like 80% of the conversations I'm having from a strategic perspective, which is kind of where I try to add the most value, it's around this like direct response versus growing a brand mentality. So we talked earlier where obviously there's lots of the analytical tools which we've kind of relied on in the past to validate digital marketing have, like they're either less effective or they're just going away completely. And a lot of people in the industry are butting heads against like, okay, well, if I can't just put money into this channel and then see this like line go up on this like dashboard, like how the hell do I actually grow a business? And it kind of goes back to like the fundamentals of marketing, which we have kind of long since been forgot, where we talked about like product, price, place, promotion, that type of thing. So we're getting away from this like direct response golden era, if you want, which was powered by a lot of digital marketing. I still feel like digital marketing is like that term itself should go away because you have marketing and you have digital channels, right? It's not like its own offshoot. Mm-hmm. But with like the lack of those tracking tools, you have to rely on kind of the old school way of doing things, which is always the way it's worked, but we've just kind of ignored it for a little bit. And that comes back to like, how do you fundamentally grow a brand? And you have to get kind of comfortable with the concept of you can put money into something and you might not be able to directly manifest that into a ROAS figure or into like a CPL or whatever. So the biggest problem I have is trying to get e-commerce native people to appreciate those concepts and appreciate that not everything that has value can be measured easily. And it's very much measuring equally because there's an expectation both from clients and from like kind of professionals in our field where it's something like the ease of measuring and measuring accurately and it being readily available with nobody doing much work for it. That's always been like an expectation, and it's not a given anymore. And how accurate was analytics before this? Questionable. Definitely bigger questions now around it. So it's getting used to those concepts and I guess maturing as an industry a little bit.
That's it, and they're difficult conversations to have with someone who doesn't necessarily understand marketing and the wider impact it can have, and especially if you're talking to salespeople who are very black and white. Do this, get this output. They want to see that direct return on ad spend without obviously all the other benefits, and they might even just look at e-commerce is very like straight away, is it? You've got to build in that lifetime value, and there's a lot of difficult conversations, it sounds like, that you have to have, and it's almost, from an agency perspective, then it's managing expectations maybe is become a bigger part of the job.
Yeah, again the balance between managing expectations but also not destroying a person's optimism and enthusiasm for what they're doing. It's such a fine line to balance.
Yeah.
I feel like that guy who walked across a tightrope across like the Twin Towers and back in the day. I feel like that's like the level of finesse you need to have with these conversations.
Sure.
And it's made even more difficult because most of the people who are entering kind of e-commerce leadership now have come from channel backgrounds. They've been like they've started as SEO manager, they've went to like head of SEO, then head of performance, and then naturally they've went to this like head of e-commerce role. And to their defense, they've never had to or never been required to understand these bigger concepts of what e-commerce is, and it's almost, they're being set up to fail, and it's a very difficult thing to unlearn kind of 8 to 10 years of ingrained knowledge.
So what kind of advice then would you give to that person then, that marketing person that's at the e-commerce business and is kind of having all these problems?
So for the marketing people, the number one thing I would say is stop using revenue as a measure of success, or the be all and end all measure of success. Revenue's great, but getting back to like the fundamentals of business, our job as marketers is to, it's in the title, like bring a product to market profitably and sustainably, and revenue is a part of that. But also revenue is like, once you're a competent marketer, revenue is very, very easy to fudge. Like, you can drop sales, you can hike up ad spend, like you can fudge
fudge the attribution and loads of stuff. Yeah, Rob's taught me all these things over the years.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can fudge it for long enough to kind of do your 18 months, start looking for your next role, and then by the time it actually comes to head and like it all implodes, you're like, you're gone. You've like failed upwards to a degree type of thing. So get away from revenue. Start looking more at like kind of contribution margin and things and concepts like that. But also remember that marketing is product, price, place, and promotion. Promotion is arguably the weakest kind of lever you have to pull as a marketer. You can refine product, you can test pricing, you can widen your distribution to other channels and stuff like that. Promotion's that little kiss that puts it over the edge. It's not the kind of driving force behind most marketing success. So I think expand your knowledge around those areas would be my main bit of guidance.
Okay. Have you seen Madman?
Oh god, yeah! Like if you look at my living room, like, there's so much kind of like mid-century stuff in there. Where I just
that's what's kind of triggered me actually. So are we like ignoring revenue? We're all kind of just being Don Draper. We're like coming in the office, having some whiskey, maybe coming up with like a really sweet kind of. Is it? Do you think advertising's maybe like coming back around into it? I don't know.
I don't think it's difficult. I think some of the concepts that we've dropped off on, which were important, need to be remembered, and it is like the 4 P's of marketing. The second is an appreciation that again, profitability exists, and profitability should be your kind of defining star into a lot of degrees. If you do, if all your marketing activity is just hiking revenue up 20%, but then also your costs have gone up 20%, then arguably you should have done nothing, and you'd be in the exact same position. In terms of getting money into the business to contribute to your fixed costs, which is, that's what you're there to do, really. The trouble is contribution margin and cash in bank aren't in a GA report, so it gets easily ignored, I think. But yeah, I guess advice to marketers is expand your knowledge into finance, into wider marketing concepts.
Can I add another P? Purpose. Because I think, you said, like, we've been given all these automated tools, and, like, definitely when I worked with Rob, he got, like, Channel Advisor. He literally would just get a keyword optimization tool, get, like, a price thing that just lowballed everyone by a penny, and he'd just press go, and he'd just go home for the day.
Put my cigar,
we've all had it
leather chair.
I think you're absolutely right in that we're missing the fundamentals of marketing. So it's almost going back to, like, square one and just thinking, why are we doing this in the first place? So,
exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
But, is a lot of this driven by the non-marketing people in the company, the SM, of SMEs, like the owners of these companies that wanting return. But, the question around that as well is, for these non-marketing people, the heads or the owners of companies, what should they be sort of implementing now, do you think?
I think for the non-marketers, it's very much just keep an eye on your P&L. Like your P&L and the cash you have in the bank is the ultimate measure of marketing success. As you said, as we said earlier, the average stay for a head of marketing is terrible at a typical company. I think get bedded in for 6 months, build a new website for 12 months, and then okay, get on LinkedIn and start looking for your next job type of thing, right? So whoever you have employed in those roles, you have to have an appreciation that their career and your business success are two different things, and what that should manifest as is that you as the owner or the founder or the executive officer, you're the ultimate custodian of your brand and your business, and it's in the interests of employees and whatever to look as good as they can do for a defined period of time. Once that time period ends, it's not their concern, so they will optimize to different metrics than what is ultimately going to give you success and long-term success, more importantly. So I guess P&L, cash in bank are always going to be king, especially for the next year or two, with the way debt is. And ultimately, you are the custodian of your business, and don't be swayed by, I won't call them vanity metrics, because every single metric has a purpose in some field somewhere in the right occasion, but don't be swayed by green lines going up, because those green lines can always go up if there's other lines and other metrics that are suffering because of it. So,
It's interesting. That's a really honest approach, especially from a marketer. Just to say that, and marketers do that. They will come in, they'll make a quick impact, and then they'll leave basically, and they'll do flashy things like just revamp the website, make some cuts to get it. And CEOs do it too. Of course they do. They come in, get rid of a bunch of headcount, and be like, "Oh, look how much profit I've made." It's something people do, but I guess then the key there is that marketers and obviously non-marketers, the owners, etc., have to then just work really closely together, come up with kind of the shared aims there, and just, I guess, not work in silo, really? Is that...
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, just align goals, and as long as, if you set the expectation that, okay, we're going to focus on contribution margin, and the bigger this lump of contribution margin is at the end of the year is how we measure success, and it's how much I'm going to like you as an employee or as my head of marketing, and it's ultimately it's directly linked to if you put more contribution margin into this cell in the spreadsheet, I will give you less shit in your role. Basically, that's that aligns interests. But often there's misalignment there, so you kind of default to revenue because revenue is the thing that is seen as universal. But as we've talked, it's an easy figure to fudge, really. So alignment across those two departments, and just reward the right behaviour as well. If revenue's down but you're making way more money, and you're not trying to go for a VC fund or whatever, that's good news. You shouldn't give that market a shit because revenue's down if everything else is fundamentally better. Yeah, because
that's when they'll cut corners to try and just hit that revenue target. They're backed in a corner. So
right.
This is what I love about and I really should learn to say the name, because I deliver the interview. We've had Chris on as well. I speak to Chris Narakadian pretty much daily about marketing and e-commerce, and this is kind of what sparked this podcast, really. That's such a refreshing way to do it, and your approach of kind of getting involved almost operationally and just looking at the whole picture, I think is just it's where people need to get to.
100%.
We'll talk at the end where to find you, how to work with you, and where to learn more about that approach. But listen, guys, everyone listening, just be better. Don't go in, do the 6-month thing and bail. Just do your job. Be better.
Yeah, build up that trust. Yeah, it is difficult. Right. It is difficult for. I'm just going to quickly say, for owners of businesses to know who to trust, because you think you got the right guy in, and then they do what you just said, and then they're off because they don't care. They're just on to the next thing. Yeah. So it almost trashes the thing of marketing. Anyway, digressing, we'll do that.
Because then it's
we'll move back.
Maybe like benefits package, and it's like, what's the benefit to staying at a company for 5-10 years? You maybe get a bit badge or something. So there's whole conversations, of course. Let's line it up, okay? So, are there any sort of tools, softwares, new platforms that people should be using? Let's kind of get into those. People can take things away.
So, I guess a lot of marketers who are kind of at a level where they have to start like reviewing costs of tools and stuff, that the narrative for this year is probably going to be, what can you save? What tools aren't you using? Can you cut out and things like that? And I feel like that's going to be a bigger conversation this year than particularly what tools are coming to the forefront. I think, again, like it all kind of links back into like the central points we've been talking about, where the more you can work out of a silo and the more you can kind of feed other departments with relevant information, that's really like the key to moving your marketing forward. So any tools that enable that, I think, are the key go-tos. So anything that kind of gathers data from prospects and customers, FormToro is a very good one I use. It's a data capture kind of tool, which is on the surface of it looks very much just like, oh, this is a really nice way to do pop-ups. But what it essentially does, it breaks down like the analytics and the kind of your subscriber to conversion ratio and things like that, and you can push a lot of deep information contextualized with data to other departments to say like, okay, this is how you could improve the pricing of these products, this is how you could improve these certain qualities. And of 100 people who sign to our database, 50% are saying that, I don't know, the build quality is the most important thing, or 20% are saying the ethical side of things is the most important thing. So that's a really good tool to kind of build basically your entire marketing proposition around. So I'm very much an advocate of FormToro at the moment. So I'm not affiliated, by the way, as well. So
yeah.
Okay, so obviously the thing I'm banging on about at the minute, AI, how does that have a place within there as a tool in e-coms? And you can be quiet, Johnny. On this.
No, it's fine. I just texted you permission. I was just like, you can do your AI thing, it leads on. So we can chat throughout.
It does, I don't know. I'm going to keep quiet, let you talk.
All right. So this is a really difficult one because I'll come across as a bit of a Luddite when it comes to the AI conversation.
Boo. Boo.
So if we look back at history, we say history is probably the best predictor of like behaviour and what's to come in some respects. AI as a tool, I don't see like this productivity boom which we're thinking is going to happen to actually materialise. And the reason I don't is because if you look back to like during like the big commercialisation of the internet, which let's call it like kind of early 2000s when things really kicked off and everything kind of became commercialised, productivity growth hasn't really moved particularly fast in like the 2000s and the 2010s. Now there's lots of factors around that. I'm not saying the internet being a dud is the one, but if we look at that and we say the internet itself hasn't dramatically improved the productivity of the world, like I don't see the strong argument that says AI is going to do that thing. There's a really interesting kind of body of work. I can't remember the economist's name now, but he argues that we overestimate the impact of the most recent technological updates, and we diminish those ones which are further back in time because we just can't perceive that could have made that much big of a difference. So if you take the example of a telegram made a message be like receivable from, I don't know, 6 days, like weeks to get this letter across to somebody from the other side of the world. A telegram made that happen in a couple of days. Telephone made it happen relatively instantly. And then we get to the point where, you know, the incremental gains from these from technology is getting smaller and smaller. If you consider the difference between a fax machine and an email, it's only a couple of seconds really. Like, you know, maybe a minute when the person faxes it across. So the limitation for us increasing productivity and whatever is the human decision factor. And I don't see that AI gets to a point ever when we just give it free rein out the cage. I don't see that as a thing. So yeah, I'm very, very kind of pessimistic about the impact on AI, especially when it comes to marketing as well. Like people like forget how big the internet is and how much stuff on there that nobody ever sees. And when it comes to AI content generation and whatever, like, is it just going to be filling that part of the internet up which nobody ever looks at? In which case, like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you guys, but do you feel like when you see AI content, you get like an uncanny valley sense, like, you know it's written by AI somehow, and like for me that's developed really quickly.
It always starts with, you just know.
And I feel like it's a sense which is developed very, very quickly with people.
I've said to Rob, right, there's going to be a point, because obviously people are using automation on LinkedIn even to send messages and leave comments. There's going to be a point where LinkedIn, there's no human users, and it's just robots having conversations with other robots.
But on the back of this, you could find that actual, you know, like YouTube things or actual content that you could tell's written is going to become more prevalent because people are going to get fed up with this AI very quickly, and they're just going to want, if you can understand it, if you can work out which one is the difference, that could go to the forefront. But do you think, I'm slightly off tangent here, Google will be able to pick it up, or do you think it, as you kind of maybe alluded to them, people are picking it up?
I'm not letting you have it, Rob, because Google is going to pick us up, because they're going to know. We've talked about this. They're going to get like, they're already cryptographically tracking, aren't they? ChatGPT. They'll sell that to Google. They'll know. Conversation over. You're not having any more AI with it. We're at a good episode length, and I've actually got a bonus question to make it even longer because I'm having such a good chat. So we don't have time, unfortunately. But we'll do a different episode on AI, Rob. A whole episode for you.
Thank you.
So, Rob, to get back on track, earlier you sort of mentioned the ethics side of things in e-commerce. This is a bonus question, so throw it back if you don't want it. But okay. How important do you think that is? I guess like the ethics and obviously like the sustainability side of e-commerce.
I guess there's 2 points to it for me. If we split ethics and sustainability for a second, so ethically working in e-commerce, we have to remember that no matter what tricks we use to get someone to buy something, that's ultimately we're taking money from them. And whenever you take money from somebody, whether it be a customer or like an agency-client relationship, like you have to give them something good back. Mm-hmm. It's the reason I hate drop shipping and types like and things like that, because fundamentally, like, you do have to bear in mind that no matter what tricks you can do to make somebody buy, like, there has to be a limit to it, because ultimately that's money coming out of somebody's pocket, right? So there's that. The sustainability side of things, I think that's really, really going to be tested in the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. Principles are very easy to have when there's no downside to having them. And obviously we've seen in the past year, when it comes to sustainability, like lots of governments and stuff are turning their back on kind of like the commitments they've made environmentally, because well, times are hard now, so like, you know, we can't do it. I feel like the same is going to happen to a lot of supposedly ethical e-commerce stores as well. They'll roll back these kind of commitments and stuff like that, and they'll just quietly put it, I don't know, into the back. I hope I'm wrong. But this will be the testing time for it, I think. Yeah,
but ethically as well, we've got the is it marketing manipulation or marketing persuasion? I mean, the same thing is that, aren't we always trying to persuade people to buy things which really do they need? And isn't that the kind of our job in a way?
Fast fashion, you know, like, and things just get used, binned, like people not wearing.
Yeah. Ultimately, like, if you want to become a complete Puritan, you can't do it working in this field. You absolutely can't. like, we have to accept our role in the big churning machine that is, is the larger kind of system.
Yeah.
But I think you can make better decisions, and the real measure on how sustainable or ethical you are, both as a person and as a business or a brand, comes down to what it actually costs you, because greenwashing and stuff costs you nothing more than a couple of £1,000 in marketing spend, right?
Yeah.
Being truly ethical costs you, and that's when you'll see what these brands are made of, I think.
Last question, a real quick one on that. Do you think consumers are going to be putting more pressure on people in terms of that sustainability, or do you think, they'll be like, oh, I'll recycle at home, doesn't really matter?
It's a really hard one, because there's a very big difference between what people say motivates them and what actually does.
Sure.
I'm no better than anybody else on this front, so I try to I limit my fast fashion purchases. I try to recycle, and sometimes I don't wash the cat food tin out because I just really
how dare you?
Yeah,
how dare you?
Like that. So I say I value sustainability and whatever, but if I truly did, I think I would change a lot more about my personal habits.
Yeah.
So
they can't put pressure on the businesses unless they first put that pressure on themselves. And I think what you said at the start sums it up. We're in that testing period, and I guess see what happens in the next couple of years. So.
Exactly, yeah. It's a very hard one to call.
Super quick last couple of questions. So penultimate question. What about sort of like data privacy, cookies? How's this impacted e-coms? You don't need to go too in depth.
No. I mean, it has, but the fact that you can't track something perfectly doesn't mean it isn't happening still. And it's that gap between what you can report on and what reality actually is. People are saying e-commerce is changing because of lack of tracking. I don't think it is. I think people fundamentally act the same. We just have a bit less. We have to make a few more stabs in the dark. And let's just be appreciative that we had a really good run of being able to do whatever we wanted to when it came to privacy online.
Yeah. Okay. It's more about proving other values. We've touched that, so that's fine. So final question, I'm going to let Rob have his golden nugget tip because he's desperate for it. And it does lead on quite nicely, I guess. And so what's the future of e-coms? I'll keep it as broad as that.
Future of e-coms, I think it's going to mature into just the general way of doing business. When you talk to e-commerce, is a very kind of exciting and kind of quite glamorous field for most people because it's so related to tech. If you talk to somebody who's a retail specialist who's into optimizing retail stores and placements of physical locations, that's a lot less exciting because it's a very mature part of a business mix, and that's where e-commerce ultimately has to get to. We've had our goal. I feel like we've had our free reign of track anything you want, no restrictions, do whatever. I feel like it just will mature into the hierarchy of a business more so than we have been those people in the room who all wear jeans to work and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like that. Right, Rob, we get to your golden nugget. So he's got his little drumsticks, but I've actually just found we do sounds on here. So this is what Rob's competing with. Could you hear that?
Yeah.
It's 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't get much better, right? So Rob's, hold your horses. Rob's going to introduce his golden nugget section with a bit of a drum roll, and then we're going to get a rating out of you, Rob. So, are you ready, Rob?
No.
Are we talking me, Rob, here?
Sorry, yeah,
No.
Rob B. Boily
sorry.
Boily is going to do a drum roll, and then guest Rob is going to rate it out of 10. You ready, Rob?
I'm gonna try and go.
I put too much pressure on you. You do not have to pull your punches. I think the last guest gave him a 3, so don't pull your punches.
I mean, I feel like it's a very fair 75 out of 10 there.
Okay, 7.5.
Yeah.
75. Sorry, no.
No way. Honestly not. I'm going to just round that down to a 4 because you're too polite. You're too polite. I put too much pressure on you, Rob, and I'm sorry it's backfired. Anyway, go on. You can have your nugget anyway.
Okay, my nugget then. So, you got a time machine. You can go back 12 months in time to speak to yourself. all about e-commerce, what would you say?
That's a difficult one. The very pessimistic side of me says try to get into finance.
Yeah, sure.
Get into anything else when he comes.
Yeah, I guess like realistically, like just be resilient, because
that's a good one. Yeah.
The golden rule of anything is time spent in the industry or time spent in the market always beats like kind of the ebbs and flows and fluctuations of e-commerce. So stick at it, survive, and 2023 will be a write-off.
Yeah.
That golden age will come again.
Well, yeah, it will come again, but it's good.
Golden age, where everything's done by AI and you just get to put your feet up here, Rob. That's your dream. That's why you keep at it.
That's my dream. Yeah, that's my dream. No, that's great. That'd be resilient. And I think it's probably true now, isn't it? It continues. Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, until times come back. Till the good times come back. Whoa.
Yeah, there'll always be ebbs and flows, and
yeah, there always are. For
sure. But look, you've given everyone some really, really great tips to implement in the meantime to help them be resilient. Obviously, help them. I think fundamentally for me, the key takeaway is building those relationships with other stakeholders and that expectation. And I think there's just so much we can dig into. There's a load of great tips. I can't wait to actually listen to this one back and edit it. And I know everyone else has got some really good tips. So for those people listening who've enjoyed it and they've taken some good stuff away, like where can they find you online? Where can they work with you?
Yeah, so find me on LinkedIn. I always drop either memes or occasionally some decent advice on LinkedIn, which is always well received. Other than that, go to here.co.uk, so it's HEUR for anybody who can't spell it. And yeah, just get in touch. I'm always happy to talk infinitely about these topics.
No, it's Rob, it's been brilliant speaking to you, and my takeaway from you is AI is the future, and that's how we need to go.
Definitely go speak to Rob, because I feel that could have been a 3-4 hour episode if we'd have gone.
I could keep going. Yeah, we could just keep it going.
I enjoyed it chatting so much.
Unfortunately,
we do have to wrap it up because no one's going to click on a 4-hour episode, are they? So, this is like Joe Rogan. He does those, doesn't he? But whatever, we're digressing again.
Stephen Bartlett does it as well.
That's it. All right,
we'll all talk how insightful we can be.
That's it. Yeah, maybe we need to get a bit deeper. But Rob, it's been amazing. Thanks again for coming on. To everyone listening, please give us a 5-star. It does really help us out. I don't know. Go rate us elsewhere, do all the stuff. Just go find us, go check Rob out, go check Hua out, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.
Yeah, see you later. Bye.
Thank you, guys.